Hey everyone, it's Alex here. I get a lot of messages from folks who are about to upgrade their PC memory and wonder if they're about to spend a lot of money for a nice looking kit that ends up being a mismatch for their build. That hesitation is real. DDR5 is still new enough that the ecosystem can feel a bit confusing, and the difference between a good kit and a great kit often boils down to how it behaves in the exact rig you're using. In this video I'm going to walk through the G.SKILL Trident Z5 Neo RGB 64GB kit, talk about the practical strengths and weaknesses I've seen in real-world testing, and help you decide whether this is the right memory for your needs. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's set the stage. The Trident Z5 Neo is targeted at enthusiast-level desktops, especially those built on recent Intel Series or AMD X Series chipsets that support DDR5 6000 speeds. The kit comes as two 32GB modules, so you get the full 64GB in a dual-channel configuration right out of the box. That alone solves a common pain point for people who have been juggling 16GB sticks and hitting the ceiling when they run heavy workloads like video rendering or large data science models. With 64GB you can comfortably keep a dozen Chrome tabs, a few VMs, a Photoshop session, and a game running simultaneously without the system dipping into the page file. Now, the first thing I checked was whether the memory would actually run at its advertised 6,000 metric tons per second speed without a lot of manual tweaking. G.SKILL advertises both AMD EXPO and Intel XMP 3.0 profiles, which means you should be able to enable the 6,000 MHz rating from the BIOS with a single toggle, depending on your platform. In practice, I installed the kit on a fresh build with a Ryzen 9 7950X3D and on a separate Intel Core i9-13900K test bench. On the AMD side, the EXPO profile took the memory straight to 6000 MHz, CL36, and the system posted fine without any extra voltage beyond the standard 1.35V. On the Intel side, the XMP profile also hit 6000 MHz, but I noticed a slight increase in idle temperature about 2 degrees higher than the AMD board, likely because the Intel platform tends to drive memory a bit harder under load. If you're the kind of user who loves to push settings, it's worth noting that the kit has a relatively tight latency CL36 across the board. That latency is a solid balance for the 6000 MHz frequency. You won't see the ultra-low latency figures you get on DDR5 7200 kits, but you also won't be penalized by the higher timings that sometimes come with those faster speeds. In everyday use gaming, compiling code, or loading large project files, I didn't notice any perceptible difference between this kit and a lower speed 5600 MHz kit, except that the system felt a bit snappier when launching heavy applications. That's the kind of subtle, real-world benefit that matters more than a headline number on a spec sheet. One area that many buyers worry about is compatibility. DDR5 still has a handful of quirks, especially when it comes to motherboard BIOS support. G.SKILL's documentation says the kit is validated for a long list of Intel and AMD boards, but you'll still want to double-check your specific motherboard's QVL, qualified vendor list. In my experience, the kit worked flawlessly on the Asus ROG Strix X670E and on the MSI MPG Z790 Carbon Wi-Fi, but it did require a BIOS update on an older B660 board that only supported DDR5 5600 out of the box. So, if you're buying a brand new motherboard, the risk of a compatibility headache is low. If you're on an older board, make sure you have the latest firmware before you pop the modules in. Let's talk about the aesthetics for a second, because the Neo RGB part of the name isn't just marketing fluff. The modules feature a matte black heat spreader with subtle RGB lighting along the top edge, which integrates nicely with most build themes whether you're going for a dark, stealth look or a burst of color. The lighting is controlled through standard software like Asus Aura Sync or MSI Mystic Light, and there's no noticeable latency or flicker when you sync it with other components. If you're someone who cares about the visual cohesion of your rig, this kit delivers a tasteful glow without being gaudy. Now, who should buy this kit? If you're building a high-end gaming rig that also doubles as a workstation for content creation, the 64GB capacity gives you headroom for things like 4K video editing, 3D rendering, or running multiple VMs. The 6000 MHz speed provides a nice performance lift for memory-bound workloads, which you'll see in benchmarks like Cinebench or 23 where the system runs a few seconds faster compared to a 5600 MHz kit. It also works well for enthusiasts who want to enable the latest memory profiles without digging deep into the BIOS. In short, this kit is a solid match for anyone who wants both capacity and speed, and who is comfortable with a modern motherboard that supports DDR56000.